Hi, it's me, Jill, or otherwise known as Aunt Fanny, and we're gonna make some chicken bone broth today. I have been hoarding my vegetable scraps in the freezer, as you've seen in other videos. Whenever I cut any scraps off, when I'm cooking a soup or anything like that, I take the peels of carrots, the tops of celery, the ends of carrots, and the peels of onions and any other onion scrap, and I just put it in a Ziploc bag and I store it in the freezer until it gets full. And then I go ahead and make some bone broth. So today, it's full. However, I only have one rotisserie chicken carcass in the freezer, so I prefer to have two, maybe three, but I think in this pot, that's probably gonna be good enough with the amount of vegetables that I have. And so we're gonna make it today. But the main thing is carrots, celery, and onion. And I'm also going to add a little bit of extra onion as well. And then I have just one chicken carcass. And the thing was that my bag was getting so full that I needed to go ahead and cook this up. And I only happen to have one pre-cooked carcass. This is not a raw chicken carcass. This is actually from a rotisserie chicken. So usually I'd like to have a little more than just one of these, but it's probably gonna be a fairly small pot of bone broth today. I would use dried herbs, but today I happen to have parsley, fresh parsley, so I'm gonna throw that in there. And then I'm gonna use some thyme and some oregano also, and then a little bit of peppercorn. And then I'm gonna throw in just a little bit of the apple cider vinegar, just very little, like maybe 1/4 cup. And that is just to help entice some of that collagen and stuff out of the bones. But because I have such a small carcass today, I probably won't even put a full 1/4 cup in of this because I don't want to overpower. I don't want to change the flavor of the broth. I just want to help that collagen to break down. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna go get me some extra onion, maybe an extra carrot. I think I have plenty of celery in there. And then we're gonna use some water. I'm gonna add all of my ingredients into my pot. Okay, so we're gonna start with our chicken. And like I said, if you have more than this, that would probably be ideal. Or you could supplement this with chicken feet. I know that doesn't sound like the most appealing thing, but chicken feet is an excellent, excellent source of collagen. And if they're raw chicken feet, you can actually use them twice. Whereas this is pre-cooked, so I'm only gonna use it once because the chicken feet just would not release all of their collagen in a 6-hour cooking period. They do get to stretch a little bit further. And so usually you do about however many feet you have to carcasses. So if I had feet, I would throw in 2 feet to go with this one carcass. All right, so I'm gonna throw in my parsley, and I'm not worried about cutting it up because I'm gonna strain all of this stuff off anyway. And then oregano, and oh my goodness, oregano is so good for us, so good for us. I wish I had some fresh oregano and thyme right now, but I don't. So I'm just kind of putting a handful in there of each one of those. And then I have a few peppercorns, but not quite enough. I wish I had more. Ideally, you would use peppercorns and not ground pepper because we want to be able to strain all of these out, but I just have pepper today, so I'm just gonna use it and just gonna have to deal with that. And then one thing that I'm going to do when this is done is I'm going to freeze it into ice cube trays or some sort of smaller containers depending on what I'm going to use for it. So if I'm going to use it to have a cup every morning to start my day, then I'm just going to freeze it into ice cube sizes, and then I can just throw a couple ice cubes in, warm it up, and melt it down, and I go about my day and add a little sea salt in there. But if I'm going to use it for the actual replacement of broth in soups and things like that, then I'll freeze it into larger containers. I can also put it into a mason jar and keep it in the fridge for probably up to a week or so. And if you don't drain off the fat, some people might say that if you pour it into a mason jar and then let that fat rise to the top in the jar in the fridge, that you can actually get a little bit more time out of it. I don't know if that's exactly true, but that's what I have heard. So again, I'm gonna supplement it with a few extra onions. I'm just gonna cut them into quarters just so that they're able to break down. And like here I have the skins. I'm just gonna throw those in there. And then I got some extra carrots. I washed them, but I did not peel them. And then here we go. In here is my collection of things. So I have celery, lots of celery. And See that? Just lots of celery tops that I would have normally thrown away. And pieces of carrots, shreds of carrots where I've peeled carrots. I just throw them in this bag and accumulate them over time. I'm gonna take my garlic that I've saved, I'm gonna stick it back in there. This smells so good. Okay, so my bag of onion, peels and tops. All right, so now we have all of our vegetables. I'm gonna add, like I said, up to a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar because it has a nice flavor in itself in case it does change the flavor of the broth. So here we have 1/8 of a cup, and then I'm just gonna do like a little half of one. I don't wanna alter the flavor too much. It has its purpose. So now I'm going to pour some water into this. Make sure I have everything covered in here and underwater. And then I'm gonna turn this burner on. I'm gonna turn it up on high and I'm gonna watch for it to boil and then remove it. Let it settle, skim the scum, and then put it back on to simmer for another 6 hours. And then at that point, I'm gonna remove all of these large pieces and then start salvaging that broth that's in there. This smells absolutely delicious. And it hasn't even come to a boil yet. Everything that's in this pot is all gonna be discarded with the exception of the broth. I watched a video, I think it was a reel somewhere, where somebody had made a broth and then they stuck it in their sink and they strained the vegetables from the broth and the broth went down the sink. So don't make that mistake. That would be so heartbreaking to spend all this time working on this project and then to lose it all down the drain. So bone broth, it's an excellent form of nutrition that we can just incorporate into our regular cooking, into a new habit of drinking it like you would drink a tea in the morning to start off the day. It's gonna help with so many things. There's so many different benefits to bone broth. I find that there's a little bit of a texture difference in bone broth compared to regular broth, and I imagine that has something to do with all of the collagen and things that you're actually extracting from the bones. That may take a little bit of time to get used to, but don't give it up. When you drink it as like a tea, then you may find that it's a little bit bland. So like I said, add the sea salt into it. That will bring out the complexity of all the flavors. And again, use the hack whenever you are cooking to go ahead and put all of the vegetables, peels, and tops of your celery, your onion peels, all that stuff. Put that all into a bag, put it in the freezer, and when you're ready to make a pot, just pull it out and just start using it. So it's an excellent way to not waste and to have all the nutrition, because your nutrition is gonna be in the skin and things of these vegetables. So I'll get back to you as soon as this begins to boil, and then I'll show you how I skim it, and then we'll put it back on for 6 hours. And then at the end of that, we're gonna have some bone broth that we can pop in a jar or in the freezer. For any of you that happen to be any type of keto diet starting off the new year or extended from last year, something that's a bit high protein, this is an excellent way to get all the things you need in just one simple replacement from drinking a regular broth to switch it to a bone broth. And you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck. It's gonna help you with your hair, nails, and skin because of the collagen that's gonna be extracted from these bones. It's gonna help with your digestive system and all sorts of things. So really, it's an excellent replacement for regular broth. Just to keep in mind that this bone broth can be made with either chicken, beef, fish, a whole variety. There's recipes all over the place for any of those protein sources. The main thing is that you extract the collagen from the bones of those, but you can make it a plethora of ways, and there are lots of ideas how you can make bone broth from beef, from fish, from chicken, whether the chicken be raw, whether it be already pre-cooked as a rotisserie, and same with the beef and the fish. Pretty basic though. If you have fresh herbs or even dried herbs, and you have just those items, onions, carrots, celery, and then a carcass or 2 or 3, then go ahead and use those and make this up. Like I said, you can freeze it, you can put it in a mason jar, put it in your fridge. If you're gonna use it right away, you can replace it with, in any recipes that may have a chicken stock or water, that you can use this bone broth and it'll give that extra kick of nutrition. and complexity of flavors. So don't hesitate. Make yourself some bone broth. Okay, so my broth is now boiling. And so now that it's boiling, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop it off of the burner. I'm gonna set it to the side. I'm gonna turn this burner down to low. Okay, and then as you can see, it's harder to see with the bubbles from the boiling, but there will be some foam that accumulates at the top, and I'm going to skim that off, and that's called the scum. So I'm going to pull this off the burner. Okay. This little bubbly stuff, I am going to skim it off, trying to leave all of my other parts and pieces there. I actually don't have as much scum. There is, if I can find it, just little bits and pieces of, and it just makes it a little bit more clarified as the end result. So go ahead and just skim all that scum off of there. And I wish there was smell-o-vision right now, because this absolutely smells delicious. See there's some onion peels, there's the celery, carrot peels, carrot big chunks. There's another piece of an onion in there, and the carcasses down there in the bottom, and then I have a variety of herbs and things in there. So I see some more scum over here. Take that off. Waiting for my burner to go down from its high setting, and to I'm getting more broth than I am scum. Anyway, I want that burner to reduce down in heat from a high to a low, so that I don't continue to boil this broth. I'm going to put it back on the stove for 6 hours with the lid on and just let it simmer. And there should be no boiling, there should be no bubbling. There could be an occasional little bubble that comes up and whatever, but there should be no rolling boil. Here's an opinion from a real critic.
That smells so good. What is that?
It's bone broth.
That smells like noodles.
Smells like noodles. Okay, so the bone broth is all done simmering. It's simmered for a little bit more than 6 hours. The vegetables are well cooked. The bones are broken down into smaller pieces. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start scooping out all those vegetables, bone pieces, all that stuff, all the big pieces. And I'm just gonna put it in a bowl, throw that in the trash. And to remind you that everything I cooked in here cost me, I don't know, maybe $1, and that's only because I supplemented with an extra onion, half an onion, and an extra carrot. Everything else was basically just garbage that other people would discard. So I'm straining it now with just a wire mesh strainer. I'm pouring it also all over my counter, so that was kind of a bummer, but that pot was a lot heavier than I thought it was gonna be. And then for a second strain, I'm gonna go ahead and put a flour sack towel over top, and then I'm gonna strain it one more time and just try to get all of those little pieces filtered out of there. And so once that is all done, then I can go ahead and start pouring it into mason jars or ice cube trays. So I was able to get 2 quarts out of this pot of broth that I'm going to put in the fridge, and I'm going to use those in any savory dishes or anything that calls for water, as I've said before. And then I also got out some ice cube trays. I'm going to fill those up, put them in the freezer, and anytime I feel like I want to have some in the morning for like a tea type thing, I can just go ahead and pop that into a coffee cup, warm it up, add some sea salt, and have myself a really nutritious drink. So here I am putting it into those ice cube trays. Excellent way to preserve this for use in between making any of your batches. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me today to make this broth. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all the little things to help my channel grow, and that would be great. Have a great day.